I found this bundle of photos in an antique shop. A handsome man on the front and a labeled photo on the back. I couldn't tell if they all belonged to the same family or if the antique dealer had just grouped together some random pictures. But once I started researching them, an entire family story began to unfold. Here are all of the photos that were in the package. Even better, most of the photos were labeled. That meant I had a real chance of figuring out who these people were. I suspected that at least two of the women were somehow connected. The wedding photo was of John and Catherine, and the photo of Lyde was addressed to Kitty and Jack, common nicknames for Catherine and John. I decided to start with the wedding photo. John P. Harris Jr., Catherine Hutchinson Harris. John Patrican Harris married Catherine Eliza Hutchinson in 1897 in Wood County, West Virginia. The newspaper described their wedding as being, quote, one of the very prettiest home weddings that ever occurred in Parkersburg. Catherine was given away by J. Friend Hutchinson. Her sister, Miss Lyde Hutchinson, was one of her attendants. Yay, I was right about Catherine and Lyde being connected. The newspaper went on to say that the couple would settle in Tyrone, Pennsylvania. In 1900, they were living in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Not Tyrone, but close. John doesn't have an occupation listed. Sadly, John and Catherine had lost 2 children by this time. They went on to have 3 more children, all of whom lived to adulthood. In 1910, John was a lumberman. At the time of his death in 1930, he was a sales rep for the Tropical Paint and Oil Company. Catherine died in 1929, just a few months before John died. Before we move on to the other Hutchinson women, I have to point out this other photo of Catherine. I love how the photographer took this picture in a landscape format rather than the traditional portrait format. I suspect he did that to get more of those leg of mutton sleeves in the picture. So what about the other Hutchinson women? Are they also connected to Catherine? Researching Catherine a bit more could reveal clues about them. Catherine was the daughter of John Hutchinson and Mary Emma Cochran. John Hutchinson was a prominent attorney in Parkersburg, West Virginia. When I say prominent, I mean that he also held various county offices, ran for the state legislature, but lost, and ran for the U.S. Senate, and oh yeah, he was the chief counsel for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. He was kind of a big deal. Here's the Hutchinson family in 1880. John, attorney at law, wife Mary E., and children May, J. Friend, Sue, Bessie, Kitty, Eliza, and Donnie, a 1-year-old daughter. So there's Catherine, who we knew the family called Kitty. The J. Friend Hutchinson who gave her away at her wedding was her brother. But who are these other siblings? One of John's numerous obituaries sheds light on that. Daughter Donna was the 1-year-old Donnie in the 1880 census. Donna Hutchinson Summers was one of Catherine's sisters. She married Frederick Summers in 1904. They stayed in Parkersburg, and Fred eventually owned an insurance company. Donna passed away in 1946. What about Lyde? We know that Catherine had a sister, Lyde Hutchinson, but she wasn't in the 1880 census. Or was she? The photo gives her name as Lyde Hutchinson Bartlett. Lyde married Clyde Rollin Bartlett in Wood County in 1899. Yes, Lyde and Clyde. Every record I have found for her, marriage, censuses, even her tombstone, names her as Lyde, and consistently gives her birth year as right around 1877. Seeing how this family likes nicknames, I think that Lyde is the 3-year-old Eliza in the 1880 census. Which brings us to Lucretia Hutchinson Mallory. Crete Hutchinson married Ernest Mallory in Cabell County, West Virginia. We know from John Hutchinson's obit that he had a daughter named Crete. Are Crete and Lucretia the same person? Well, besides Crete being a nickname for Lucretia, and we know this family loves their nicknames, but we see her listed in later censuses as Lucretia. What about the other 2 women? Now, there are no names on either photo, but looking at the faces, I think that this is Crete. and I suspect this is Mary Emma Cochran Hutchinson, the mother of the Hutchinson girls. The little boy? Sadly, there is no name and no photographer's mark on the photo. There are just too many possibilities to confidently identify him. It could be John Harris, John and Catherine's son, who was born in 1902, but it could be one of their nephews or a younger cousin. It could also just be a random photo that the antique dealer put into the packet. Which brings us to the photo that started this adventure for me, the stashing man, identified on the back as Bo Weaver? ? The clothing, hairstyle, and lack of a beard points to this photo being in the 1890s. But Bo doesn't sound like a formal name that was given during that time period. So now I had another nickname problem on my hands. What was it short for? Beauregard? Or was it just a family nickname? Does this guy even fit in with all these Hutchinsons? John Hutchinson's obituary didn't name any Weavers as sons-in-law. Is this a random photo that got bundled together with the Hutchinsons? There was actually another clue besides the name written on the back. The photographer's mark on the front. W.H. Agnew, Tyrone, Pennsylvania. Tyrone? That's where the newspaper said John and Catherine were going to live. Maybe this guy's connected after all. But I still have the issue of what name was he using? I couldn't find any Bo Weavers around Tyrone. We also have another clue to work with, and it shows why it's important to keep photos together. The photos that we've identified apparently belong to John and Catherine. I say that not only because of the wedding photo, but also how Lyde's photo was addressed. Jack and Kitty, Merry Christmas. If he isn't connected to the Hutchinsons, maybe Bo Weaver was connected to John's side of the family, the Harrises. John was the son of John Patrican Harris and Mary Rachel Scott. There were several Harris children, including the oldest girl, Nanny. In 1883, Nanny married Alexander Bowman Weaver. Bo Weaver. I noticed something interesting. In 1910, A. Bowman Weaver was working as a lumber merchant. That's the same census when John Harris was listed as a lumberman. I have to wonder if the two men actually worked together. If the handwritten note on the back of this photo is correct, then I'm confident that this is Alexander Bowman Weaver, John Harris's brother-in-law. What started out as a random packet of antique shop photos ended up revealing an entire network of family connections, and shows why you really need to keep your photos together. But what if one photo didn't contain just a few relatives, but 27 people whose identities had been lost for nearly a century? Watch this video where I use the partial names on the back, a lot of old records, and one heartbreaking clue to identify everyone in a forgotten family photograph.